What happens when a CEO trades his corner office for a grease-slicked prep station and no one knows who he is? Xander Dole wiped sweat from his forehead as he leaned over the stainless steel counter, pretending to fumble with a box of lettuce. His back ached from standing, and he already had a blister forming on the inside of his thumb thanks to a dull prep knife. He hadn't done this kind of work in over 15 years, not since the first location opened. Now there were 14. 14 locations meant he couldn't be everywhere at once. And lately, things had started to slip. He'd seen the reviews online, customers complaining about cold food, long waits, and worst of all, employees being rude. Some reviews even mentioned high turnover. That last one stuck with him. Xander had built the brand from scratch. He'd worked the line, scrubbed the floors, and even slept in the back office in the early days. He wasn't going to let it rot from the inside out because someone didn't care as much as he did. He picked store number 9 for his undercover visit. It was one of the busiest in the city and had gone through 3 kitchen managers in 6 months. No red flags on paper, but he didn't trust paper anymore. He trusted his gut. He called the district manager and said he was sending in a new temp kitchen trainee for 2 weeks, someone from a culinary school partnership. A quiet guy, fresh off a certificate course. He had his team rig up a fake ID badge with the name Eric. He shaved his beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, wore thick rimmed glasses, and kept his head down. Nobody at Store 9 had met him. He only did face-to-face meetings with store leads during initial launches. Since then, everything had been through district managers and quarterly Zooms, and with the turnover they had, no one here would recognize him. "Yo, new guy," barked a voice from behind. "You slice tomatoes that slow at home too, or just here?" Xander turned to see a tall, broad-shouldered man in a black bandana, arms crossed. His name tag read Cody. The guy looked annoyed just watching him work. "Sorry," Xander said quickly. "Just trying to what, win a salad contest? Move." Cody shoved past him and grabbed the cutting board, didn't even look at him, just took over. Xander stepped back, trying to stay calm. A younger girl across the station gave Xander a small shrug. She looked barely 20, with tired eyes and a nervous twitch in her hands as she chopped onions. "Don't let him get to you," she whispered. "He's like that with everyone." Xander nodded but didn't say anything. He had to see more. By the end of the first day, Xander was drained. His arms burned, his back screamed, and he'd seen enough to know something was off. Cody barked at everyone the entire shift. He didn't shout, didn't curse, but he knew how to cut people down with tone and timing. "You call that diced? This ain't home ec. Maybe you're not cut out for this." He never said it to the managers' faces, only when they weren't around. It was subtle, but it was poison. Especially because none of the kids he talked down ever said a word back. Xander sat in his car that night staring at the steering wheel. He wasn't even sure what he was feeling. Anger, guilt. He'd built this place to give people a second chance. Now it was just another job for some, and hell for others. He came back the next morning before opening. The girl from yesterday, the one with the onions, was already there. She was wiping down the prep counter alone. "Hey," he said, walking up slowly. "You're in early." She startled a little, then softened. "Yeah. I like to get the worst part done before it gets loud." "What's your name, Gia?" she said, offering a small smile. "You're Eric, right?" "Yeah," he paused. "Mind if I ask something?" She raised an eyebrow. "Why don't you say anything when Cody talks like that?" Gia looked away. "Because I need this job, and he's been here 2 years. He's tight with the assistant manager. One wrong word and I'm off the schedule." Xander's jaw tightened. He felt it in his chest, that sinking feeling of failure. He used to promise himself no one would ever feel scared to speak up in his kitchens. He worked the rest of the shift watching Cody closely. And Cody didn't disappoint. He mocked a new guy for being slow, rolled his eyes when a dishwasher asked for help lifting a stack of trays, even nudged a bucket into someone's foot and laughed when they tripped, and still no one said a word. That night, Xander called the district manager. I need 2 more days. Keep it quiet, don't tell anyone. You sure? I'm sure, he said. I'm not done yet. Xander arrived early the next morning, just as the sun broke through the low clouds. The air smelled like fryer oil and concrete. He parked 2 blocks away, changed into his polo and apron in the backseat, and walked in through the rear door, unnoticed. Inside, the kitchen buzzed with quiet activity. A different set of faces from the previous day, but the same tension hung in the air. A tall, wiry kid named Leo was stacking delivery boxes in the corner, nearly dropping one as he turned too fast. No one looked his way. No one offered help. The assistant manager, Tanya, stood by the inventory shelf with a clipboard. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes moved quickly. She made a sharp note on her paper, then called out without turning. Leo, if you crack 1 more crate, you're paying for it. Leo froze, then nodded stiffly and went back to work. Xander noticed his hands were raw. No gloves. No tape. Just red skin and calluses pressed into cardboard edges. Xander walked over to the cooler and began arranging produce. His station for the day was salad prep. A quiet corner. No fryers, no grill, just slicing, washing, and keeping your head down. A few minutes later, Cody walked in with a to-go coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He barely looked up. "You're on dishes today," he said to nobody in particular. Tanya raised an eyebrow. "We've got 2 on dishes already." Cody didn't respond. He just dropped his bag behind the line and started checking the hot table. Xander kept his eyes on the lettuce, but he was listening. Tanya turned back to her clipboard. "Fine, but if we fall behind on prep again, it's not on me." The morning rush crept in slowly. First a couple of online orders, then a few to-go customers, and within 20 minutes, the ticket machine started spitting nonstop. The line moved fast, but not smooth. Every few orders, someone had to ask a question: where was the extra sauce? Was the grilled chicken ready? Why weren't the beans restocked? Cody didn't answer most of them. He just flipped pans, moved trays, and occasionally rolled his eyes if someone repeated themselves. At one point, Gia came in late from the back, carrying a tray of chopped peppers. Her face was pale, her shirt damp with sweat. "You okay?" Xander asked quietly, setting down his knife. She gave a quick nod. "I had to take the bus. My ride fell through." Cody glanced up. "Then leave earlier." She didn't respond. She just set the tray down and started working. A few minutes later, Cody stepped away from the grill and walked toward the back. Xander used the moment to lean closer to Gia. "Why is he still here?" She kept her eyes on the cutting board. "He covers shifts. Management likes that. Doesn't matter how he acts. He fills holes." Xander felt his stomach tighten. Staffing issues were a real problem across all locations lately. But this wasn't a solution. It was a patch over a leak. As the lunch wave hit, the pressure in the kitchen spiked. Orders piled up. One of the new hires, Marcy, missed a step on a combo plate and sent it out without the rice. The customer brought it back to the counter, annoyed. Cody didn't say a word. He just walked over to Marcy, grabbed a spoon, and flicked rice into the bowl in front of her hard enough that some splattered onto her apron. "You see now," he said flatly. "It's not that hard." Marcy blinked twice. Her lips parted like she wanted to say something, but she didn't. She just nodded and turned back to her station. Xander excused himself to the back cooler. He stood alone between crates of onions and sealed containers, gripping the edge of a shelf until his knuckles turned white. He'd seen enough. Watching it happen once, maybe twice, that left room for interpretation. But this was patterned, deliberate, and tolerated. He returned to the kitchen, kept his head down, and finished the shift. Later that afternoon, when the dining room quieted, Tanya stood by the back office, typing on her tablet. Xander walked over, still in his apron, eyes tired. "Hey," he said. "Can I ask you something?" She looked up, cautious. "Sure." "What's up? Does corporate ever do surprise check-ins?" Tanya narrowed her eyes. "Not usually. Sometimes the district manager swings by unannounced, but they don't really stay long." "What if someone higher up came in, like incognito?" She let out a short laugh. "You mean like undercover boss?" "Not likely. If they cared that much, we wouldn't be running 30-hour weeks with half staff. Xander nodded slowly. You ever had complaints about Cody? She tilted her head. From customers? No. Staff? Maybe, but nothing concrete. You know how it is, people don't want to be the one to speak up. Do you trust him? Tanya hesitated. He's reliable, he shows up, he knows the system, but yeah, I've had a couple people ask to switch shifts. Why? She glanced around to make sure no one else was nearby. They say he gets under their skin, always joking, but it's not really funny. I've told him to tone it down, but he acts like I'm overreacting. Xander nodded again. Thanks for being honest, she studied him. Why are you asking all this? He looked her straight in the eye. Because I don't think anyone else is. He walked out before she could respond. That evening, he drove to the regional office an hour across town. He didn't call ahead, just walked into the building still in his work clothes. The receptionist blinked when she saw him. Mr. Dole, I need the HR director, he said. Now. 15 minutes later, he sat across from a conference table with 2 regional leaders and the head of human resources. He told them everything: names, dates, behavior patterns, specific incidents. He didn't soften anything. He didn't need to. When he finished, the room was silent. The HR director was the first to speak. If what you're describing is accurate, we'll need to act immediately. It is accurate, Xander said, but I'm not done. He explained that he wanted to return the next day, not as Eric, but as himself. He would walk into that kitchen and make his presence known. And he wanted someone from HR there to witness it. They agreed. The next morning, before the store opened, Xander stood outside the back entrance with a clipboard in hand and a company polo with his real name on the badge. Tanya opened the door, confused. Eric, she asked. He stepped inside. My name's not Eric, he said. My name is Xander Dole. I own this company. Her face drained of color. She stepped back instinctively. Wait, what? I need everyone in the kitchen. Now. Within 10 minutes, the entire staff stood in the dining area, most still in prep gear, some holding half-wrapped burritos or pans. Cody walked in last, arms folded over his chest. Xander stepped forward. I've spent the last 3 days working beside you, watching how this place runs. I've seen people show up early, pick up shifts, work through breaks, and get nothing but silence in return. I've seen others, one person in particular, treat teammates with disrespect, mock them, and make their jobs harder. He turned to Cody. That ends now. Cody's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? You've had your chances. You know what you've done, and you're done here, effective immediately? No, hold on, Cody said, stepping forward. You can't just— I can, Xander said. And I am. The HR director stepped forward, clipboard in hand. Cody froze. Then turned to Tanya, but she looked away. Grab your things, the HR rep said. We'll talk outside. Cody left without a word. Xander turned back to the staff. I didn't come here to catch people failing. I came because I needed to see for myself what it feels like to work in this kitchen. And I owe some of you an apology for letting it get this far. No one spoke, but some of the tension in the air finally eased. I'll be here the rest of the week, not as a mystery temp, as your CEO, and I'm not just here to watch. He looked at Leo. You're working injured. That's going to change. Then at Marcy. You handled a bad moment yesterday with grace. That matters. Then finally at Gia. Soon as we're done here, I want to talk to you about the assistant manager training program. If you're interested. She didn't blink, just nodded once firmly. Xander took a breath. We're going to do better, starting today. The kitchen felt different that afternoon. Not calmer exactly, there was still the usual hum of timers, the clatter of pans, the hiss of steam, but the undercurrent of tension had shifted. People moved with more certainty, not because the pressure had vanished, but because the air wasn't charged with the constant anticipation of being cut down. Xander didn't retreat to an office or hand off responsibility. He tied his apron tighter, washed his hands, and slid right back into prep. Across the station, Gia was showing Marcy how to portion the new grain blend for the protein bowls. Xander watched their interaction, precise, respectful, patient. When Marcy hesitated, Gia didn't reach over and do it for her. She explained, waited, then nodded when it was right. Tanya stepped over, holding a printed schedule in one hand. I've got gaps for Saturday again. I'm trying to cover with 2 part-timers, but neither's confirmed. Let's talk after close, Xander said. We need to rethink how we're staffing these peak days. She glanced at the dining room where 2 customers were waiting for pickup, then nodded. You're staying all day? Xander didn't answer. He just picked up a bell pepper and started slicing. At 4:30, the second rush began. Orders doubled in under an hour. A delivery driver leaned against the counter waiting for a triple combo that was already 4 minutes late. Inside the kitchen, Leo was sweating over the hot table, flipping tortillas with one hand and assembling wraps with the other. His sleeve kept slipping down, revealing a bandaged wrist. Xander moved beside him. Take grill for a minute, I've got wraps, Leo blinked. You sure? Go. He stepped aside without hesitation, and Xander slid into position, wrapping, labeling, and bagging with practiced speed. He didn't talk. He didn't need to. Tanya noticed the shift and moved to the register to help manage the flow. 5 minutes later, the backlog was gone. Orders were caught up, and the kitchen was back in rhythm. After the rush, Xander pulled Leo aside near the back sink. You're compensating with your left hand. What happened? Leo hesitated. It's not a big deal. Let me decide that. I caught it in the walk-in door last week. I taped it, figured it'd be fine. We were short that night, so I stayed. Did you tell anyone? I didn't want to get pulled from the schedule. Xander nodded slowly. You're off grill for the next 3 shifts. You'll stay on cold prep. No heavy lifting. We'll get a doctor's note if needed. Leo looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. Thanks. Xander watched him walk back to the line, then turned to Tanya. I need to see the incident log. She pulled a binder from the office shelf and handed it over. Xander flipped through the last 2 weeks. There was no mention of Leo's injury. Is this everything? It should be, Tanya said. No, I mean, has anything been left out? She glanced at the floor. Sometimes, staff don't report things, they just deal with it. I need to make something clear, Xander said. If someone gets hurt and it's not logged, that's not just a policy issue, that's a liability, for them and for us. I understand. Do you? He met her eyes. Because this isn't about paperwork, it's about safety. If someone's afraid to speak up, that's on leadership. Tanya nodded, slower this time. You're right. He handed the binder back. From now on, I want daily logs reviewed with the team. No exceptions. Back on the line, Gia was coaching another new hire, a kid named Devont, barely out of high school on food rotation. He was nervous, but she kept her tone even, correcting him only when necessary. As Xander refilled the prep fridge, Devont leaned toward Gia. Was that guy serious? He's really the owner, Gia nodded without looking up. Yep, he's not what I expected. Xander pretended not to hear, but the words hit him anyway. He wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Maybe both. After close, the team gathered near the back sink to wipe down trays and scrub floors. Xander pulled Tanya and Gia into the office. The HR rep from earlier that week had returned and waited by the desk, tablet in hand. I want to talk about the assistant manager opening, Xander said, looking at Gia. She blinked. Me, you've been leading without the title, that's what I look for. It's not about who's loudest or longest tenured, it's about who makes people better. I didn't think I was even on the radar, she said. You weren't, Tanya added. Not because of performance, just never got flagged. That's part of the problem, Xander said. We've been promoting based on familiarity, not capability. That ends tonight. He turned to the HR rep. Start the paperwork. Let's get her into training next week. Gia looked stunned. But I didn't even interview. You already did, Xander said. Every shift. After the meeting, as the staff clocked out, Xander lingered in the kitchen, watching the last pan soak in sanitizer. The place was finally quiet but not heavy. He called the district manager. We need to review every location's staffing logs and promotion histories, he said. And I want secret checks, not for punishment, for insight, starting next quarter. Undercover again, the manager asked. No, just presence, real leadership presence. It's time we started managing from the ground floor again. He hung up and looked around the kitchen one last time before walking out into the dark lot. The fluorescent sign above still buzzed faintly, but inside something had shifted. Not fixed, not perfect, but finally moving in the right direction. 2 weeks later, Xander returned to store 9, this time through the front doors, not the delivery entrance. It was just after 9 in the morning, and the place was already humming with quiet momentum. Orders were trickling in through the app, and the prep team moved with a focused calm. He took a seat in the corner of the dining area, observing not as a hidden figure anymore, but as the man who'd made the call to change the direction of this store, and maybe even the company. Tanya emerged from the back, spotted him, and came over with a clipboard tucked under one arm. "We're down one again today," she said, standing beside his table. Devont called out, "Stomach bug. Gia's covering an extra hour on register before her shift starts proper." Xander nodded. "You working doubles again?" "Only on Fridays now," she said. "I've been delegating more. Leo's picking up some shift coordination and Gia's starting to shadow me for inventory this week." Xander leaned back slightly. "You comfortable with that?" "I am. She's sharp, picks things up fast. And honestly, it's been good for me too. I'd gotten used to doing everything myself, didn't realize how much that was burning me out." "That was something I should have caught sooner," he said. "I was watching numbers, not people." Tanya hesitated. "You're here today for follow-up." "I'm here because changes don't stick unless someone stays close. I wanted to see how the place breathes when no one thinks they're being watched." She nodded once, then returned to the back. From his seat, Xander saw Leo moving between stations, talking quietly with the new prep hire, a kid with nervous posture but quick hands. No raised voices, no tension, just steady work. Gia appeared from the side, apron already on, tying her hair back as she prepped the cashier station. "You've got the morning shift plus training later?" Xander asked. She glanced over. "Yeah, Tanya asked if I'd help cover the register until the other cashier gets in. Not ideal, but we're light." "You okay with it?" Gia shrugged. "It's not forever. We're still short, but the schedule's not crushing anymore, and Tanya's actually checking in now. That helps." "Has HR followed up with you?" "They scheduled my orientation for the assistant role next Thursday," she said. "I'm shadowing Tanya this week and next. After that, they'll move me to half-admin hours." Xander nodded. "You've earned it. Just make sure you're not carrying more than you can hold." Gia raised an eyebrow. "Are you?" He didn't respond right away. "Not anymore." At that moment, a customer at the front counter raised his hand. It was a man in his 30s, holding a tray and frowning at the contents. Xander watched as Gia stepped over and leaned slightly forward. "What's up?" The man pointed at the wrap. "This isn't grilled chicken, that's the shredded one." Gia examined it calmly. "You're right, that's on us. I'll get it fixed." "No rush," the man said, a little softer now. "Just wanted the right one." She nodded and walked back to the line. She didn't raise her voice, didn't blame anyone. She just remade the wrap and handed it off herself, along with a small card for a free side on his next visit. Xander looked around. No one was watching her. She didn't do it for credit. She just did it right. By noon, the pace had picked up, but the team held. Orders flowed and the kitchen moved like a unit. Not perfect, but connected. Leo caught a misprinted label before it went out. Marcy, the quiet prep from before, stepped in to refill the sauce wells without being told. Even the new kid, whose name Xander hadn't caught yet, started offering to run trays when things backed up. He waited for the lull at 2 when the line slowed and the kitchen shifted into cleanup. Then he stepped through the prep area and knocked lightly on the office door. Tanya looked up from her laptop. "Need something?" "I want to bring someone else in," he said. "Part-time floater, someone who can support you and Gia during high-volume days." Tanya hesitated. "We're still tight on payroll." "I'll approve the override, call it operational insurance." She leaned back. "You really think we need it?" "I think what we have is working, but it's still fragile. One bad week, one person out sick, and we're back to overextensions." "I'd rather be ahead of it." Tanya nodded slowly. "I'll post the listing this afternoon." Good. Also, I want a scheduled check-in every 2 weeks, just 10 minutes. You, Gia, and me. Formal, not even close, just talk. If something's off, I want to hear it before it turns into turnover. Later that afternoon, just before Xander left, he pulled Gia aside again near the back cooler. I heard something from the district office, he said. Apparently, one of the other stores flagged Cody's name on a rehire request. Gia frowned. Seriously, it came from a location in the North Sector. They didn't know the history, just saw his availability and experience. What did you tell them? I didn't tell them anything. I flagged HR. They pulled up the full file. And, he's permanently ineligible. That's non-negotiable. Gia let out a slow breath. Good. I want to be clear about something, Xander said. What happened here wasn't just about one person. It was about what we allowed, what we ignored. That's not happening again. She looked at him for a moment. You think other stores are dealing with the same kind of stuff? Probably, he said. But now I know what it looks like up close. So I'm not relying on monthly reports anymore. I'm building a rotation, live visits, same way I came here. I won't be undercover, but I'll be present. You're really turning this into a system? I have to, he said. I used to think culture came from the top. Turns out it lives in the shift leads, the prep line. The people who show up tired and still do the job right. She tucked a towel into her apron and nodded once. As he walked out through the front doors, Xander paused and turned to look at the counter. The dining room was clean. The music was low. No one looked over their shoulder while working. No one flinched when someone stepped behind them. He stepped into the sunlight and pulled out his phone. He opened the company's scheduling app, tapped into the system, and added a new recurring task. Franchise rotation visit, biweekly no notice. Then he put his phone away and walked to his car. Not because the job was done, but because it had finally started in the right place.